joined here with Chris Salkeld. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, mate. So how are you doing during lockdown then? Obviously not able to drive at the moment.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think anybody and everybody, whether you're in motorsport or in any industry, it's been frustrating, but at the same time, I've kind of looked at it as it's a bit of a blessing at the same time that whenever in our lives we're ever going to get a period of time when we're told to stay at home, so we've been able to focus on a few things we have neglected for a little while, and been able just to kind of focus on developing myself a bit more, learning a few new tricks and trades, and we'll hopefully come out of this when we all eventually get out in a much better position than we
Yeah,
went
fair
in.
enough. Obviously everyone's been focusing on doing the houses up and stuff. What have you been up to
I've
then?
been I've been doing the same. I've been doing the same. I've got probably a little bit too carried away with doing my house stuff. And I think once the new lockdown had settled in, I thought, right, well, what should I do? And first thing I did was book myself a new TV to go on the wall, and then done my kitchen a little bit, and then a few other bits and bobs around the house. So it's been fun, I have to admit. I've been wanting to do my house up for a few years, but we're away so much racing that you never really get a chance to do it. And when you are home for long periods of time around the Christmas period, you do want to catch up with friends and family, and you've got other commitments you've got to get on with them. You've got to get the next season sorted. So it's really nice to have a bit of time just to get on and do bits and bobs you've been putting off, as I said.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, obviously your career's only just got going, one full season, obviously in the G40s. So let's learn a bit about yourself. Obviously, who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. I got into motorsport a little bit later in life. My career path in motorsport is, I don't think anybody else has really had one like mine. I got into racing when I was 26, I think I was, when I did the Ginetta GRDC. And it wasn't something I was planning on doing. I've always loved motorsports all my life, but I never had the opportunity. Did no karting as a kid, never had the opportunity. And then I got a phone call one afternoon from my brother, who works with a guy called Stephen Moore. And Stephen racing the GRDC himself, and Andy said to me, "I've got a mate of mine who's big into motorsport and wants to take you out on circuit." So, all right, okay. So, picked up the phone, spoke with Stephen. Stephen said, "Right, what are you doing next Tuesday?" Luckily, I had nothing on, so he organised for me to go down and test the Ginetta G40 down at Blyton, Ginetta's private testing facility just in West Yorkshire. So, I plodded on down, went down. Mike Simpson, the factory driver, was there. Stephen was there in his car. Had a day thrashing around the circuit, and to say I've never really had much experience racing cars or driving cars on circuit, that is, we went out and we were able to put in pretty competitive lap times within the first half of the day, and one thing led to another. Mike was very enthusiastic about getting me into get me on the grid, as I'm sure he is with most drivers. But and then me and Stephen kind of created a little partnership where he said, "Look, if you can underwrite the season, then I'll help you raise the sponsorship." And we did, and we had a phenomenal GRDC year. We had, I think it was 7 podiums out of the 8 races held. We never qualified lower than fourth, and it was a brilliant year. And I came into it with not a lot of the other drivers had a lot of testing. They did a lot of pre-season. I came into it, showed up at Rockingham in the absolutely pouring down rain in a little arrive and drive car, and we got straight onto the podium. So it was brilliant. And then as the year went on, as more seat time happened, we got closer and closer and closer to the guys, the front two. And on the last weekend of the year, we're racing around the phenomenal Brands Hatch GP. We matched them and were able to beat one of them. So it was a brilliant opening campaign. And then obviously last year we jumped up. Me and Stephen continued working together. We were able to get on the G40 Cup grid, and that again was a wild ride from start to finish. We went in there probably, I'll be honest, a little bit too. I probably use the word cocky. Let's put it that way. A bit overly confident that we thought, right, we've got this in the bag. We knew the competition. We kind of got it slapped in our faces the first 2 rounds. We had 2 absolutely shocking rounds. We were 61 points off the front championship leader after 2 rounds in only what is a 6-round championship. And to be honest, at that point, I thought, well, that's the championship gone. There's no way I'm going to be able to overturn something that big. And the pressure kind of came off me then. And then we went to Silverstone for the 3rd round of the year, and we got a second, which was our best result of the year to date. And then we got the famous first win under our belt, where we went from 4th to 1st in the last lap. And then it just kind of got going. We went to Zandvoort for the 4th round of the year, and I was able to Ginetta have this fantastic in-house simulator called SimTrack, run by Adam Croft and in-house driver coach James Kellett, who's British GT5 champion twice. and they coached me. They taught me the circuit, and we went to Zandvoort, and we dominated it from start to finish. Top the times in every single session. Put it on pole. We had a double pole. So with our qualifying, how it works is your 2 fastest lap times determine where you start in the first 2 races, and the third race is where you start based off where you finish in the second race. So we had a double pole position, won the first race. Then the second race, we dominated it. We finished. I think we were 9, nearly 10 seconds clear, and then the team were hanging off the pit wall, going slow down, because obviously you have a certain limited number of tyres you can use. So we had to kind of protect the tyres. So we won by 5 seconds in the end in the second race. In the third race, what could have been a perfect weekend in my eyes. We lined up on the grid and it started raining on the green flag lap. And as a guy with not much experience, I kind of set up a bit too gung-ho, let's put it this way. Led through the first 2 corners, but at Zandvoort, when you come to turns 2 and 3, it's like a left-right, kind of not a chicane, but it's like a quick left-right. Went into a little bit too hot, went rally crossing, let's put it this way. Luckily got the car back on circuit in 4th and was quickly enough able to pass third and second, and we were closing very quickly on who became the championship rival, Rob Keogh, for the lead until we got red flagged because of a crash a bit further back. And I've always said if we had another couple of corners, we should have been able to get that final win. And then Brands Hatch again, we did the same. We had 2 wins in a second, which got us back into the championship lead after Rob unfortunately had a mechanical failure. His front left wheel fell off at, I think it was 105 mile an hour going into Paddock Hill. So I think that was a full brown trouser moment for Rob, but it was one of those moments that little bit of luck I needed to get me back into it. And then obviously Donington was, let's put it, it was a weekend of a lot of emotion and very hard weekend for me, as I went into the first weekend I've ever gone into in my life leading a championship, and we were leading by 8 points, and we had an 11-point swing on the Saturday where Rob put it on pole and won the first race, and I finished 3rd, which was my worst result for I think 13 races. So Rob then took the championship going into the Sunday, and then we passed Rob twice on both of the last laps. The second race of the weekend on the Sunday, the first race on Sunday, but the second race of the weekend, I caught Rob attacking Dan into the chicane at Donington going in towards the Melbourne Loop, and was able to pass Rob there to get us going into the last round of the year to go into the last round level on points. I mean,
yeah. Well, whilst you're talking about that, what I can do, I can get up now and we can actually talk about that last lap. Whilst we're watching it, so if you can see this on my screen.
Yeah, here it. Yeah.
There we are. That's going into the last lap now.
This is round 3, so this is the last lap of the last race.
Yeah, I'll turn the volume off of the commentary, and then you could talk us through. Obviously, you're leading. Rob's just behind you there, going towards the last lap now. Of what's happening, what you're thinking here. Obviously, you're going to win the championship at this point.
To be brutally honest with you, I thought this was the last lap. I had no idea there was going to be another lap after this, so I thought defend like crazy, hold it all back. You've got this in the bag. And then I only realised there was one more lap as we crossed the line, because I didn't see a checkered flag. So I came around here thinking I'd won it, and then it was here when I realised, where's the checkered flag? There's no checkered flag, and it said 1 lap remaining. And then obviously here is probably the worst feeling any driver would ever probably feel when you're leaving a championship and Rob just absolutely sends up and down the inside. Good little shove, let's put it that way. So. And I knew at this moment I had to do anything and everything I could possibly throw at it to get back past him. So as I was coming through the cranes, I remember thinking to myself, there's one opportunity on the circuit left. Turn 1 red gate's always a good one, and yes, some people can make moves as they come up the hill. But here I just threw everything. So I went through the old hairpin about 5 mile an hour quicker, ran a little bit wider than I've ever gone through it. Track limits, but it's for the championship, so you've got to do anything and everything you can do. And yeah, it was the worst feeling you could possibly think of right now. And the car was sideways. Every corner, I was just anything and everything I could do, I was throwing it at it. And then I knew I had to get a great run onto the back straight here to get in the slipstream.
Yeah.
And then there's my lovely teammate Mark Sampson sat on the gravel there. I remember he came up to me at the end of it all once he got back to the paddock saying, "Please tell me you got it. Please tell me you got it." And luckily we did. And here again, it was later break than I've ever done. I had to throw everything into this. I just absolutely sensed it through the chicane, and I knew at this point I was catching up on Rob really quickly.
Yeah.
And I knew his left wing mirror was in, so I stayed left as much as I can do. And at the last minute, I just popped it out to the right. There was a clear gap on the inside, and Rob pushed me off a little bit. But it was at this moment I knew I had it, and it was just. Everyone keeps saying to me, "How did you feel when you looked in your rear view and you saw Rob there?" And it wasn't. I didn't really feel anything. It was more just a sense of relief and all that. And obviously, there was part of me, I'll be honest, that thought this might end up at the stewards. If it was the other way around, I probably would have taken Rob to the stewards and all this lot. But it's a testimony to Rob's character. He's an absolute living legend of the G40 Cup. He's racing it for God knows how many years, and he knew there was a clear gap, which I went for, and we luckily got it. And then I remember pulling into the paddock, and everyone said, "How did you feel?" And I just thought it was more just a sense of relief. It was 5 months of nothing but hard work and dedication to turn that season around. And leaving Snetterton, I'll be honest, after the second round of the year, when I saw the points gap, I thought this is impossible. I think everybody had ruled me out of the championship. I think everybody thought it was between Rob, Dan, and Alistair at that point. So to come back and win it on the penultimate corner of the last lap of the last race is a fairy tale, and it's a testimony to anybody out there who's not only just in racing but in anything in life, is never give up. Just no matter what, no matter how much adversity is against you, no matter how many things are stacked against you, just to keep pushing, keep working, because you never know. You don't quit until you get to the checkered flag, because you never know what could happen.
Yeah. Well, obviously you said you got into racing when you were 26. So what were you up to before that then?
Well, before that, I was actually training to be a commercial pilot at the time. So it's a quite big change. I was in the process of doing all my pilot's license and all that. And I absolutely love being in the skies. And I did before that. I basically set up a couple of businesses and we did a little bit of investing into companies myself. But it was one of those things. I'd always wanted the opportunity to go racing, and when it comes, I think any guy on the planet, even any girl on the planet, would cut their left arm off for those type of opportunities. Yeah. It's a once in a lifetime thing, and it's one of those things. I work so hard for it now, just to keep myself in the grid as we build up, and hopefully we'll have a strong 2020, and we'll see where the world takes us in 21.
Yeah, so I've got a question from one of our drivers here. Hero asks, what is your favourite track to race at?
My favourite track to race at my favourite track is Brands Hatch GP, because it's a phenomenal circuit. But my personal favourite track to race at was Zandvoort. It was not just the circuit was phenomenal. I really do hope I get to go back and race it sometime again. The idea was to go back this year in the G40 Cup for a one-off round at Zandvoort, just to go back, put the number one on the side of the car, and see what we could do against the new boys coming through. But yeah, Zandvoort for me, it's a phenomenal circuit, and it's not just the circuit itself as well. You're 5-10 meters from the beach. You've got it's brilliant. It was a brilliant week from start to finish, that was, and I really do hope we get to go back again someday. But my favourite circuit, not just in general, would be Brands Hatch GP, because there's something special about Brands GP in the UK. I think any driver and every driver will agree with that. When you're out in the back section, around those 3 or 4 cars right, there's zero margin for error. You make one mistake, you're in a wall, you're in a tree. It's bonkers, and it's such a rare circuit that you get to race on. I think only the touring cars and the British GT lot really get to race around there every single year. But even then, when you're trying to do a track there, I think there's only about a handful or 2 handfuls worth of test days and track days that go on it. So when you do get to drive it, I think any driver will understand is when you get to that back section and you're throwing everything at those right-handers, it's brilliant.
Yeah, so obviously being quite young, what are your plans for the future? Currently driving for Ginetta, so do you want to move up to GT3 Ginettas, or?
This year it's my career. My dream is obviously I would love to go race Le Mans, and to get there, we know we've got a lot more hard work. We're in a GT4 Super Cup car this year, which it's an absolute beast of a machine. From last year, it's a big step up. So obviously we've got a lot still to learn, but my dream would be to race Le Mans in any category, to be honest. I just want to go experience it. Ideas for next year, I'll probably keep that a bit close to my chest for the time being. In case things change, but the main focus for this year is to go win the championship again, and hopefully that'll open a few more doors for us in 2021.
Yeah, so like you said, obviously you were going to be a pilot. Is that what you would have carried on doing if you weren't going to get this opportunity?
Yeah, I think if Stephen never picked up the phone and was able to organise this for me, I think right now I'll probably be like most pilots, but he's still sat at home waiting for cabin doors to open again for us to get going. I absolutely loved it. It was a true passion of mine, was flying, and I hope one day I get to go complete the course and get back up in the skies. There's something about it that when you're actually flying a plane, that the freedom you feel is it's something special.
Yeah, yeah. So on a race week, what sort of process do you go through? Does your diet or sleep pattern change?
On a race week, so my usual race week is Monday. I'm usually packing up and I've got a little camper van I take to most race weekends, so getting that prepped, going and do a lovely little food shop and all that. And we usually get there either on a Wednesday or a Thursday, depending which circuit and if we're testing on a Thursday and a Friday, or if we're just testing on a Friday as we are this year. I would usually go for a walk. Food, yeah, obviously I try. I'm 6'3", so I'm a bit bigger than your normal driver. So I usually, for me, trying to keep the weight off is a little bit harder to keep up with these kids who are fresh out of school, who are still growing into their body. So my diet is usually just no carbs, no sugars, just try and keep the weight off as much as possible. In terms of race weeks, usually I'll try and go do a track walk at some point, and then it's go for me. We'll go out on circuit, do an installation program, which we usually do to make sure the car's right. I get reacclimatized with the circuit, make sure everything's still the same as when we were last there, in case they change a curb or anything like that. Then we'll go through data. Usually the first hour is usually just getting reused to the circuit. Then it's setup process, and then we usually do a qualifying run, and then usually doing a race run as well, just to see how the tyres work before you actually, because obviously you've got testing tyres and you've got race tyres. So there's a bit of a difference when you come to actually you do a qualifying run, and obviously once you're doing the qualifying on the weekend, then the tyres are a bit more rubbered in, and a bit of life has been taken out of them, so you can't really deploy the same amount of speed. But I think most drivers do it differently, but that was just the way I've done it, and we did it last year. Obviously, it's a different program this year, but it's roughly the same.
Yeah, I guess it works well with you winning the championship.
yeah, it was. We had to change a few things. I think the main change we made after Snetterton last year was a completely new approach. How we go racing, how we prep for it, what we do at test days, what we do at race weekends, how I operate at race weekends, enjoying myself and do this, like, taking it a bit more seriously, and understand it's a horrendous word. I know it gets thrown around a lot in motorsport, but how blessed you are to be doing this thing, as old Lewis would say, #blessed, all that type of stuff. But I kind of realise you need to really, really, really focus. If you want to get the best out of you and make the maximum of the opportunity you've been given, you've got to give it your 100% all. And luckily, my 100% last year got us back into it and got us a championship. And this year we've got to up the ante a little bit more, and we'll see where we get to.
Yeah. So obviously you said about your strategy pre-race. How do you feel when you sat on the line? Obviously that might have changed from the last round to early in the season.
It's one of those things. I'm one of the drivers. What usually happens at a race weekend is we get called down to the holding area before we get let out to the circuit about 20 minutes before. So a lot of drivers get their cars driven down to them by their mechanics and stuff like this, so they can go for a quick pee or have a coffee or whatever they need to do before they're in their way. I always drive my own car down. Because you become so in tune with how the car feels that even when you're driving just to the holding area, you can realise, oh yeah, that feels the same, that's right, and you're getting used to it a bit again. And then I always get into the car in holding really, really early. If you're there 20 minutes early, I usually get in probably 15 minutes before we get let out. For me, I'm really nervous before most races. I get really, really, I get butterflies and all sorts. So I always get my helmet on and get in the car and get strapped in, because as soon as I get in that car and I shut that visor, I just feel calm again.
Yeah.
So something I learned then in the early stages of last season was how is best to get me prepared for a race. So I always get in early, get myself settled in, and then obviously Mr. Miyagi himself, Jim Edwards Jr., who's the team boss, team principal as it would be known as, comes over, gives you a quick pre-race chat. Same with Simon Traves, who's one of the other main bosses at SETA. They both come over, talk to me, what do we need to do for this race, what should we attack for lap one, what should be the targets, and then send me off on my way. And then as soon as you get onto the circuit, you've got so much going on about getting the car prepped, getting the tyres warm, making sure the brakes got heat in them, where you're lining up on the grid, having a look at the circuit, if there's any rubber down the lines, if there's any debris from a previous race. You've got so much to do in that green flag lap. You don't really have time to think, and as soon as you do line up on the grid, you focus on nothing more than those 5 red lights. It's one of those weird things that you don't really have time to think about it. It's a weird scenario, and I'm sure a lot of other drivers will agree with that. There's so much going on, you just don't have time to properly think. You're kind of starting to drive a bit more subconsciously, and you're doing it more out of instinct at that point.
Is that going to be the same this season then? Obviously, being with the British touring cars, are you going to be sat in holding?
Yeah, well, I think the procedure is roughly the same. We get called down to holding and go from there. I'll be honest, I probably need to read up a bit more on how the assembly area and all that lot works. I'm assuming it's not really too much different. So for me, it'll probably be the same. Way we'll go through it all in process. But obviously, it'll be a bit different when you're driving when you're doing that green flag lap at Donny. If it was the norm, obviously it's a bit different with everything that's currently going on. You'll drive around and there'll be 40,000-50,000 spectators on you won't. I've heard people saying you'll do your green flag lap and you won't be able to see any green on any of the grass bankings. And then it's one of those things you kind of just have to tune all that lot out and just get the tunnel vision and just focus on the piece of tarmac in front of you and who's around you. So it's going to be. I'm excited. I do hope we get to have the spectators there. It'd be a real shame if there's nobody there on the first round, but hopefully. As we keep coming out of this, as we get closer and closer towards that light at the end of the tunnel that has been COVID-19, we'll pray to God that we do get the spectators there, because they do make a race weekend so much better. To have all the fans there and the atmosphere that goes with it, it's electric. Even when I've been to visit race weekend before in the bigger paddocks, the touring cars, etc., it's phenomenal. It's absolutely sensational. I hate to use the word again, but you have to count your blessings every day that I'm in a position now where you get to go experience it for yourself. And rather as a fan, I'm now there as one of the drivers, and I never envisioned in a million years I will be able to do this. So I'm really excited, as you can probably hear my voice. I just want to get going again.
Oh yeah, definitely. Obviously, August. You're getting underway start of August, isn't it? So
yeah,
still got a couple of months.
We've got another couple of months, yeah. I think most things start to ramp up in the next couple of weeks. I know I'm back coaching a few of the new drivers into the Ginetta ladder, the GRDC, as it's known as, the Ginetta Racing Drivers Club. It's Ginetta's effectively series for people who aren't, well, the juniors is there 2 entries, the juniors and the GRDC. The juniors is for 14 to 17 year olds, fresh out of karts, or if they've done their racing before. Obviously, Lando Norris is the famous example who came through the Ginetta Juniors, and then Charlie Robertson as well himself, who came through the Ginetta Juniors, and obviously now Ginetta's factory driving the LMP1 program. And then there's the other side, which is the Ginetta Racing Drivers Club, which is for probably more, let's call it the elderly statesmen, the gentleman drivers who want to go motor racing and learn, get their wings of motorsport. And hopefully this year I'll be able to pass on the wisdom and experience I've been able to learn over the past couple of years racing the Ginetta G40 and help these boys get a bit quicker, and hopefully we can go for, as a team, the 3rd Ginetta G40 Cup in a row.
Yeah, so obviously moving up to the GT4 this season, how was funding for that? Obviously, I've seen your liveries the same sort of colours and sponsors. Have they shipped in?
The sponsorship's obviously a very, very, very hard. It's a hard business to do. Is that and luckily I've been able to build some great networks and some great relationships over the past few years. Ainsley, obviously, who's a title sponsor for us, he's been phenomenal. He's so supportive of it all, and he absolutely adores it. And he came to Brands Hatch last year to watch it live and had a phenomenal weekend. And then you just got the thing with sponsorship and getting onto the grids is you'll speak to 1,000 companies and you'll get one.
Yeah.
But that one company you get could make the difference between being on the grid and not being on the grid. And I always joke around. It's a lot like being an actor. You get rejected that many times that you just got to get used to it, and hopefully we can keep going and these guys stay supportive. I know we've got some great brands and we've got some great support from the guys, and hopefully they'll stay with us for the foreseeable future and into the long term, and we'll be able to achieve something quite special together.
Yeah, so obviously, as we said there, a couple of months till we go back racing. So are you back training, or when you're planning to be back on track?
Yeah, we've been in pre-season training pretty much since January. It's been a weird one. It's you work so hard over the Christmas period to get yourself. You have a few months off at the end of the season just to enjoy yourself, I'll be honest, I may have enjoyed the championship a little bit too much. May have had one too many sherbets, let's put it that way. But I worked hard. I just thought I deserved it. And then as soon as you get to about December, January time, it's getting the weight off, getting yourself fit, making sure you're pushing yourself hard, running, cycling, training, the gym every day. And it's one of those things when, as soon as the lockdown happened, I've just been doing the same thing. I know we've been giving out a little bit of exercise, so you've got to make the most of that at the beginning. And now we're able to do a bit more. You just got to do as much as you can do, because it's one of those things, especially with the season we've got now, when you've got so many race weekends in such a short period of time. Your personal stamina, your ability to recover quickly from a race weekend will probably make the difference, I think, this year. I think people who need that 1 or 2 weeks after a race weekend to kind of come down and relax and settle. I think this year, personal fitness, even in our category, is going to be a big thing. Because even last year, I knew I would get back on a Monday, and that Monday and Tuesday after a race weekend, I'll be absolutely knackered. So it's quite a test for, I think, everybody, not just on the cars and the teams, to be able to turn cars around that quickly from prep work, but even for drivers as well, to be able to get back and then get straight into another race weekend.
Yeah, I think it's 1 week off, 1 week on, isn't it, for the revised season for yourself?
Yeah, we've got Donington and Brands Hatch now GP, because they've changed them around for, I don't really know why, but I think it's more the fact that I don't think anybody really wants to race in Brands GP in November. Probably a bit safer, to be honest, racing it in August. We've got Brands and Donny back to back in the first 2 rounds. Then we've got, I think, a week off, and then we go to Thruxton, which, I'll be honest, I'm a bit nervous. Never raced Thruxton before, never driven Thruxton. Yeah. So, as everybody I've spoken to said, it's absolutely bonkers. And it's apparently, they say the first time you take, is it Church Flat?
It's a fast track.
Let's put it, I think a few things go a bit tight on your bodies, and you have to clench a little bit as you go through it for the first time. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Another question from one of the drivers, Ben Apex, asks, do you use simulators such as Project Cars or Gran Turismo? Obviously, I've seen you've got liveries on your Instagram.
I to be honest, I had no idea the Gran Turismo livery was being done. I just got tagged in an Instagram post. I think it was last Saturday. I got tagged in an Instagram post. I was like, oh, I'm blown away by it. I was sat on my roof having a beer, and I was just like, oh, bloody hell, this is phenomenal. So that was fantastic. And again, all Ainsley and all the guys absolutely loved it, and Couplands as well. Bakery, they absolutely loved it. But no, I have a little play seat at home. Nothing too special. I know a lot of drivers have these fantastic rigs that are thousands of pounds, but I've just kept it bog standards. Little Xbox, little sim I use at home, and it does the job for me. In terms of sim work, in prep work for the week, like I say, I always go to Giannetta's in-house factory sim track, because they've got the best models, they've got the most accurate simulator to the actual car themselves. So I always go do a few hours with them each race week, just to use the circuit, get used to the circuit, learn the lines. I use Charlie Robertson, the Giannetta factory driver, he'd been there, done it, won it in the Super Cup. So he's been phenomenal in terms of getting me ready. And when we did a test day at Alton Park, Charlie taught me the circuit. And obviously, when you go from a G40 to a Super Cup car, it's a whole new driving technique you've got to learn to use the aero. And having Charlie by my side was fantastic in terms of getting you used to using that dark art that is aerodynamics that you can't see until you're going fast enough to actually feel it. Yeah. It's a weird one. You have to go through that little grey patch with mechanical grip ends and aero grip starts, and you just believe that there's grip at the other side.
So obviously with the Giannetta simulator for Thruxton, would you maybe use a setup that you've made in the simulator?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes we've done a bit like that in the past. For instance, Thruxton, SimTrack for me will be critical to go learn the circuit. We'll probably put a bit more time in it there and same with Croft as well. 2 circuits is very hard to get circuit time on in the UK. So going there, doing a few hours, getting used to it, and then a lot of the models do work in which you can take a setup you do use at SimTrack and put it onto the car. Obviously, nothing's ever like for like, because obviously in a sim there's a lovely thing called a reset button that I think a lot of drivers like. Whereas if you make one little mistake in a racing car, it can be a little bit of damage, it can be a lot of damage. So you've always got to have that little bit of balance in it also. Maybe we might do it. We'll see what the team and SimTrack, if it can be completely transferred across, we'll do it.
What track are you looking forward to most then this season?
I'll be honest, just Donington. I just want to get going. I think in terms of which circuit I'm looking forward to race, Croft obviously it's a local circuit for me. I'm based in Leeds, so it's quite close to us. So it's a bit like a home race. Brands GP will be brilliant as a touring car weekend because it's a phenomenal circuit. I can't wait to drive the 55 around there. Other one, I think any circuit right now. Yeah. After all this we've been going through, I think I'll race anywhere. We'll take the 55 and go to Cadwell Park, which will probably just fit down as one car at a time. But I can't wait.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's see if we've got any other questions. So obviously last season you didn't start off the best, being, as you said, 61 points off. How did you mentally bounce back from that to get back up to the podium?
Yeah, that was probably the lowest I think about. Not just with the racing, I had other few things going on in my life at the same time. I know a lot of people have probably seen the thing I do on my Instagram with the hashtag #4Andy, who was probably my best mate for a few years. He started off as like he was like a second father and a friend and a best mate for many years, and got diagnosed with terminal cancer towards the end of 2018. And it was one of those weird things. I've always used it as a way in which it was weird. Andy sadly passed away on the Thursday before the Snetterton race weekend, and that's the reason why we do the pink helmet and all the pink is always in tribute to him. And I mean, it was a hard weekend for me for losing a best mate and then having a shock of a weekend all at the same time. It was terrible. But I think ever since then, I had to start doing it for him. Yeah. I had to start pushing and working to try and do something, because he'd never seen the races at me win a race, and for me it was weird. It felt like he was a little guardian angel looking over me, just moving little pieces to help me get that first win and help me getting back in the groove at Brands Hatch and at Zandvoort. And it was one of those things. It was a hard time, but you have to support yourself with family, with friends, and you have to be able to disconnect your racing and your personal life at times. And I know for a lot of drivers it becomes one. But it's once you get away from a race weekend, just take some time off, go see your friends, go on a night out, go relax, go away for a weekend if you can. Just kind of unwind and then build yourself back up for the next one. Look, last year we had about a month in between each race weekend. This year we've got about 3 days in certain cases. So you've got to have a quick turnaround at the pace.
Yeah. Well, good luck for your first season in the Ginetta GT40. Obviously getting underway later than planned in August, but thank you for joining us, and hopefully we can see you in the virtual world with us soon.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to get involved. I know we spoke about it previously about if I could get in and do a guest round. Unfortunately, I'm not a PlayStation guy. I'm an Xbox guy.
Controversial.
Controversial. It's that controversial world of what does everybody race on and what do they use.